So far on the channel, we've mostly only discussed the media itself, whether it's anime or TV shows or cartoons. We've just talked about the stories, the characters, and so on, without getting into any meta conversations about them. Well, today I want to change that, as this is something that I feel is worth discussing. The conversation around gatekeeping in anime/TV, and a few broader issues around this topic. To avoid any irony here, let's first define what gatekeeping even is. For the most part, it's when someone or a group of people in a particular community decide whether you should have access to the thing they enjoy or their community. As an example, you say, "I love Harry Potter," and then I would say, "Have you read the books, been to the puff play, seen the Harry Potter musical, been to the amusement park, played the games, and blah blah blah." I would be gatekeeping you from enjoying this franchise because you don't meet my imaginary criteria of being a fan. This can be extended to most things, from coffee to video games. Again, not all the things that we'll be discussing today will be gatekeeping per se, but the idea is quite similar. The paradoxical nature of this video is that I know I'm essentially talking into the void, as even if every single person watching this video were to agree with me, which obviously won't be the case, there would still be little to no impact on the actual problem. Because of this, I just want to start a conversation rather than propose any sort of solution or whatever. I've been positively surprised how constructive a lot of the comments on my videos have been. There are of course the good old "you're wrong" comments, but I've been able to have some really insightful conversations with some of you, which is what I want to do here as well. With that out of the way, let's get into some concrete examples. But note, all of these will be ones that I've actually come across myself, so I can give my own experiences too, or at least seen by extension. So don't be surprised if something you'd expect does not show up here. The subs versus dubs conversation. Yes, I'm starting with the hottest take. Believe me, there are people out there who have already stopped the video and made up their minds that everything I say is wrong, just because I even brought this up as a question. I actually want to start by bringing up an argument for the subtitles being superior. It's how it was meant to be viewed. While not common, there have been times where the original manga author has been involved in the adaptation process, and perhaps his insights are vital for the characters to come across genuine. The voice actors would of course have a lot of oversight from the adaptation director, not to mention there's some fantastic voice actors out there that fit their roles absolutely perfectly. And for dubs, there seems to be a shortage of voice actors as the same people appear in most large productions, which can also detract from the experience. Though, on the other hand, who am I to say that people shouldn't watch a dubbed version if that is easier or just more enjoyable for them? Yes, all the previously mentioned points still stand, but a blanket statement of subtitles being better simply does not hold up to any sort of criticism. And I'm not just talking about people who have actual difficulty reading. For most people, watching shows is a way to relax, to turn their brains off for a little while and immerse themselves in the story. And constantly paying attention to the subtitles really does take away from that experience. And don't write that "just learn Japanese" forehead comment. I'm already speaking in a foreign language here, okay? And for people who are so protective of the original voice actors, think of the animators who put in hundreds of hours of work so that every frame looks perfect, while you're just staring at the bottom of the screen. Also, writing off the work of the voice actors doing the dub is just as disrespectful. With how established these studios are nowadays, these are not some janky booths where they pull a random person off the street and tell them to voice a character, which, if you did not know, actually happened in Japan with some older series. These are all professionals being directed by yet another professional and having access to the original production as well. Again, don't take this as me saying one is definitively better for you. Personally, I do think that there are times where the sub is done better. But you'll never see me purposely telling someone to rewatch a series that they enjoy dubbed. In my view, if you were to critique something in the show to do with a character or something like that, and I felt it's done better in the original, then yeah, I'd say I think it was better in the sub. But again, let people enjoy what they enjoy. I mentioned this in my JoJo video, but Matt Mercer, in my opinion, is one of the most talented voice actors out there. So him voicing the dub was an absolute highlight for me, even though I know that I missed out on quite a few of the jokes that are in the original. Seeing people say things like, shame you watched the dub or whatever, is just disappointing. So that's my view. Let people enjoy what they enjoy. Critique is fine, necessary even, but saying that it's just bad is not sufficient critique by any stretch of the imagination. But no matter on which side of the argument you fall, I want to know your opinion on this. Moving on, the obsessively protective manga readers. I got the full experience of dealing with these once I uploaded my Attack on Titan video a few months ago, and that is straight up the reason why I never made more content on it. I'll talk about this more when I get around to making a retrospective video of the series once it's over, but the barrage of people going on about manga this, manga that, was really not cool, as I clearly made the video with the explicit notes of me being an anime-only viewer. Honestly, I feel like just by bringing it up here, this might turn into the same thing. Attack on Titan has really been the most prominent example of this in recent memory. The conversation about the series from an anime viewer point of view just kind of feels pointless, as there's always someone who can just come in and tell you what's going to happen. That is based on the assumption that the adaptation is indeed one-to-one. And on the same note, that's not how it happened in the manga argument. This is one that often makes me very disappointed about conversations around a particular series, as I think it's a fascinating process seeing how taking the manga panels and adapting them for a series turned out. I think in a lot of situations, the anime adaptation gives the opportunity to correct what might not have worked in the original manga series. For instance, if a particular side story was not received well in the manga, it can be shortened or simply removed for the anime adaptation. On the other hand, there have been times where I would say that the adaptation should remain absolutely faithful to the original. But returning to what I mentioned about Attack on Titan again, the fact that the anime is right on the heels of the manga series leads to some very weird situations, in that conversations around the show often lead to a manga reader butting in with their take that people only watching the anime shouldn't have an opinion or something crazy like that. Again, I'll get more into this in my proper retrospective, but the spoilers and whatnot have really soured the series for me. The thing with any sort of adaptation is that in almost all cases, something will turn out not how you expected. That is just the nature of how reading source material works. You have your own thoughts on how the character should sound, act, and so on. There's always room for imagination and interpretation, which is not really the case for a series, whether it's adapting a movie from a book, an anime from a manga, or whatever. But just like for the last points, I'd love to hear your opinion on this. Are you also a little fed up with the as a manga reader arguments, or do you think that the current climate is perfectly fine? Also, how do you feel about the source material being changed for an adaptation, especially if the changes are fairly major? Is it a principle thing of it remaining faithful at all times? Or do you view it on a case-to-case basis? Any and all opinions are welcome in the comments. Next up, another hot take. The concept of a bad series. This is one that I once again have some personal experience with. You know when you enjoy a series, despite the flaws it has, but you go to check what other people thought of it and see that it's generally agreed that the series is just bad. That's what I mean here. So, onto my personal example. You ready? I liked Sword Art Online. Yeah, I know it has a lot of flaws in pretty much all aspects of the show, but do I care? Not really. I enjoyed it, and for me, that's all that matters. While I absolutely love dissecting stories and understanding what worked and what didn't, I can still enjoy a series while understanding that it has flaws. Just like with Sword Art Online, and just like with The 100, another series which I have criticized before. Problems start to appear whenever someone decides that just because everyone seems to dislike a series, you're not allowed to enjoy it either. The funny thing is, often these people are just echoing what they've heard others say. Not everyone gets into the series because of the same things. For some, the takeaways from the show might be completely different. At the end of the day, these are all forms of art, and interpretation of it is completely subjective. Again, critique is perfectly fine, but claiming that someone else's experience is automatically invalidated is not. Also, the arguments of, well, you enjoyed X, therefore I don't care what you think about Y, is just as crazy. So once again, any and all opinions about this. Have you had the experience of someone telling you that the series you enjoyed is just bad? Did it detract from your experience in any way? Do you also think that the reasons why you might like a particular show can be completely independent of the quality of its parts? Next up, the normie argument. And I'll just say it right here, this one is absolutely baffling to me. The idea behind this is that if you only watch the quote-unquote popular series, then your opinion automatically is less important. Don't get this confused with calling people normies as a meme. There are people who say this type of thing completely seriously. And this is one I don't think I'll ever be able to wrap my head around. The person has shown interest in what you enjoy, but despite this, they're still not interested enough? I mean, I don't know about you, but I've been a normie then. I watched Pokemon, so I guess I never should have watched anything else? The way I see it, most people get hooked by one of these super big series, and then look for more. But even if they don't, who cares? As I mentioned, I had seen a few series growing up, but I'd never considered myself actually interested in anime until I watched Death Note, which is widely considered to be as one of the top series to recommend to people getting into anime. But after I finished it, I began to look for something new, and that's when I fully immersed myself in the medium. Obviously, if someone was to only watch a single show and claim that everything else is just worse, I take that with a mountain of salt, but those are obvious exceptions. There are plenty of people who have only watched a single show, and I think they're as big of a member of the community as anyone else is. Especially with it becoming much more mainstream nowadays. I really don't think people should be trying to keep others out. But again, what do you think? Is it actually great that people only watch these gold standard classics? Or do you think they should watch something else to truly appreciate them? Any and all thoughts are welcome. And then going off the previously mentioned problem, something that is even more baffling. The concept of gatekeeping, not because you haven't watched the show, but because you started watching later. The idea here would be me calling everyone who has started watching Attack on Titan after Season 1 as not true fans, because I spent 4 years waiting for Season 2 and you didn't. This is another one that is just beyond insane to me. Just like the previous points, why would you ever try to push people out of the same thing you enjoy? This will be something from my own experience. Back when World of Warcraft was still growing and Blizzard announced that the subscriber count has increased by yet another million, it was something to celebrate in the community. Seeing all these new people join the game was just a win all around. Obviously though, if you still play, you'll know that the situation now is quite different to say the least. But in closing, I want to return to what I mentioned before. Anime and animation in general is finally becoming mainstream, and not something that people look down on as not being serious or whatever. Imagine the possibilities of animated shows getting similar budgets to what other TV shows get, but that'll just take that much longer if this sort of pointless gatekeeping is continued. And that brings us to the end of this video. This was a bit of a more serious one, but I promise I have some super wacky things in the works. I put out a post about this, but just in case you missed it, content might slow down a teeny bit due to me being quite squeezed for time at the moment. Again, best way to keep up with what I'm up to is via Twitter. Lots of updates over there. But other than that, I want to say thank you very much for watching. I hope you have a great day, and hopefully, I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.